Hi, this is Perry Marshall, and about 15 years ago, my wife and we had no money, but we got a little bit, and even though we were in debt, we took an opportunity to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we went to what I like to call the Jagged Edge for a week, and we really had an eye-opening experience. I had never been to a third world country, or it's not really a third world country. It was like a two-thirds world or something at the time, but there was a lot of poverty there. A guy took us on a tour of the slums, and it was kind of jarring. And I came home and I was like, wow, our politicians are honest and our water is clean and there are no poor people in the United States. And it really gave me a different perspective. And my wife and I agreed that if we could ever afford to, that once a year, one of us would go to a place like that. And, eventually things turned around and business got good and we could do things like that. And probably at least every other year, we've done something like that. And because, as soon as you start feeling like my latte's too foamy, it's time for a reality check. Well, a few years later, I went to Nairobi, Kenya, and this guy was taking me around, and he was introducing me to all these AIDS orphans and kids that lost their parents from AIDS, and it was really depressing. And after about a day or so of this, I was like, boy, I don't know how much more of this I can take. And I brought up the topic of microloans. And I go, do you know what microloans are? And the guy goes, oh, yeah, we do those too. You want to meet some microloan people? I'm like, sure. So he takes me around and we end up going to this little village and we walk into a cobbler shop and there's this guy named Paul who owns the cobbler shop. And he is crippled and his crutches are sitting against the wall and he's fixing shoes. And he's talking to my friend in whatever language they speak in Nairobi, and I look at this guy and start talking to him through the translator, and this guy was looking me in the eye, and he had this clarity about him that most of the other people that I met there did not have. Most of the people I had met in Africa, they were nice, they were friendly, but they kind of had this glassy, hopeless look in their eye. And Paul was not like that. He was obviously proud of what he did. He's a pillar in his community. His kids are going to school. They can afford their books. They can afford their uniforms. And he was making it happen. And something connected for me right then when I saw that. And I had a flashback. And the flashback was, I'm in Amway and I'm at some rally and we're standing on our chairs and it's rah rah and we're gonna get rich and all this kind of stuff. And what the flashback was about was realizing that this is entrepreneurship and that was entrepreneurship, and Perry, what you do now is entrepreneurship. And you know what? Entrepreneurship is important, because you can drop food out of airplanes and it might help people a little bit, but it doesn't solve the problem. The only way you solve the problem is people like Paul who start a cobbler shop, or people like you and me who start anything, whatever it is, a consulting firm, a manufacturing company. You write books, you sell videos, you do wastewater treatment or whatever you do, okay? But entrepreneurs have to start these things. Governments don't start them, and nonprofit organizations don't start them, and schools don't start them. Actually, that's completely backwards, because entrepreneurs create the things that fund all of this other stuff, okay? And what I realized was, standing on the chair, being rah-rah about being successful in business was not stupid. It was not stupid at all. In fact, it was very worthwhile. And I got a jolt that day seeing that guy, the crippled cobbler running a cobbler shop in Nairobi. I suddenly realized, oh, what I do is really important. Being an entrepreneur is important. And I teach entrepreneurship, and that's important. Okay? There's universities that teach entrepreneurship, but a lot of them, it's not taught by an entrepreneur, it's taught by a professor, okay? And I got nothing against professors. I got lots of professor friends, but you know what? People can tell when the smell of battle is on you versus when you just learned it out of a book. And what you do, I'm pointing my finger at you, what you do as an entrepreneur is very important. Everybody else's future hinges on what you do and your success. Because if we don't have us, we ain't got nothing. And I understood that ever since that day in Nairobi. And it's infused me with a sense of purpose, that what I do matters. Your ability to charge for what you do and get a premium price, your ability to get exposure, your ability to get customers, your ability to be seen and heard in the marketplace, it actually is important. Your education is important. The way that you're equipped, your sense of mission, it all matters a great deal. And frankly, most people do not appreciate this. A few years ago, Google started slapping people and, banning accounts and things like that. I want to tell you the real reason that they started doing this. It wasn't because they're all a bunch of prima donnas. Here's what it really was. The US government figured out that they don't have to go after every flim-flam man and every con artist in the world and ferret them out. All they have to do is punish Google for what their advertisers do, and that works well enough. And to date, Google's actually paid about $1 billion in fines for the actions of their advertisers. Now, maybe in some cases you could say that Google was complicit in what was going on, but I would say for the most part they weren't. And that this is really just irresponsible government. And I can attest that this resistance in the marketplace, and I can't get my ads to show and nobody will talk to me or whatever, it's not actually because of Google, it's because of bureaucracy. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to go into a political rant, except just to say that, when you squash entrepreneurs, you kill an economy, okay? And more regulation and more nooses around your neck and more resistance and more forms to fill out and more bureaucrats that can show up and shut you down is not good. It's not what people need, okay? But regardless, all of us, we figure out ways around it. We figure out how to do what needs to be done. And so that's what we do. And I'll tell you, I take my job as a teacher very seriously, because the fact is not everybody gets 10 chances. Not everybody has like some unlimited supply of capital. Not everybody has other people's money. Frankly, most entrepreneurs don't have other people's money. They have their own money. They have their credit cards. They have their relatives. They have their long-suffering families who do without shoes or school supplies or vacations for years while you're building what you're building. And even if nobody recognizes that, I want you to know that I recognize that, and that what you do it matters, it's worthwhile, even if all you sell is like windshield wipers for the headlights of Bentleys, okay? I don't really care what you sell. If somebody wants to buy it, it's probably important to somebody, and you need to be doing it. And so I just want to bless you, and I just want to give you encouragement that you're not alone. There's millions of people like you, and most of us we're kind of in isolation, but that's why we have mastermind groups, and that's why we have discussion boards and memberships and things where people can have a community. And so anyway, I'm for you, and I just had to get this off my chest today. Thanks for listening, and go make $1 million.